Hey everyone, I have a top 16 YCS remote duel deck profile, and it's not just your standard tier 1 deck. This deck is Adventure Virtual World, a pretty solid list. It went 9-1 in Swiss, finishing 5th in Swiss, and unfortunately losing in the top 16. Go for ERNST pilots in the deck. Pretty much come back into the game recently, played years ago, and now is back. How does it feel to top 16 in the YCS?
It felt very good. Thanks for having me, Jake. It felt fantastic. The deck ran great. I think Swiss is kind of the proof of that. The one loss I had was really quite avoidable. It was just me not watching time because they had some weird time stamps at the beginning and at the end. I just wasn't paying attention early in the game. And then Top Cut, I only lost to myself because I was very, very tired after 2 days.
So the list must be really solid then.
It's been pristine. We played one tournament before it with it, an OTS, like 50 people, 2 people played it, and we got first and second. So it's
nice.
It's incredible.
Sounds it. How many cards did you play?
Main deck 42.
Brilliant. All right, and then if you want to go into the main deck.
Yep. So obviously, well, maybe first shout out to my team, Team Legacy Card Gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for hooking me up with the deck. I was on holiday while one of my teammates built it. But it's Virtual World, so Lulu, standard, best card. GG, also pretty good. Only one Nian. We cut down on some of the Virtual World names that aren't like great starters. Nian is one of them because it doesn't do anything besides provide a body to start off. Same with Kieran, we also cut that down to 2. It is one of the better ways to get started, but you definitely don't want to see more than one. You can't normal it. It's okay. And then only 2 Roshi. Technically, this is like one of the worst ones. You really don't want to be seeing it in your starting hand, especially not 2 of, but it's too good to only have 1 in deck. Like post sighting, sometimes it's an option to go down to 1, but it just gives the deck too much extension plays. If you get hand trapped, you kind of have to play 2, but I wish I could play 1. So that's the monster lineup. 3 city. That's the one good spell to draw, or spell and trap. Kind of also great into boards. Only 2 Qinglong because you can brick on it. And then the 3 traps. Sadly, you have to play these 3. They really suck to draw, but they're necessary engine pieces. So in total, that's 19 Virtual World cards. That's focus. Can you see?
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
That's 19 Virtual World cards. That's about 4 to 5 less than people usually play. But we cut down on some of the non-starters, and it performed fantastic, thanks to partly this engine, the Brave cards. Initially, I thought this was just an Omni Negate, but it does a lot more for this deck. So the discard effect is quite good on Adventure, but you can also use the bodies very well to combo off. And this deck, this engine, goes together with the Souls engine, because essentially it says you get 3 bodies, you get 2 draws. This baits out a lot of interruptions from your opponent, and what's most important about it is it fixes the brick hands. Really, in the format, I didn't think Brave was going to be good with Virtual World because it only had a bricking problem, not a power problem. But this doesn't solve the power problem. This solves the bricking problem with the deck, and I'm really happy with how it performed. Maybe it's also a little bit non-standard to not play 3 Enchantress, but we thought about this. You really don't want to be seeing more than 1 of these. Or it's okay to see more than 1 of these, but you ideally don't want to see more than 1 of these. So adding a 6th one doesn't make it any better. Okay. A lot of people play more of them because they think you have to play the 3 bad cards, so playing more of the good cards makes the engine better. But in reality, it doesn't. It just kind of means you get more or less hands that can play.
Yep.
It's just a faulty way of thinking about deck. And then maybe this ratio is also non-standard. So essentially, it's just 4 times Souls. But the reason we play 3 Illusion and only 1 Souls is because you can definitely, in this deck, only resolve it once. So you only need the 1. and you can use every time you draw an illusion, you can put back one of your 3 cards, one of these for example, which you will get in the combo anyway, or in any Brave combo. And because you have a lot of discarding in this deck, you benefit from every card you can keep. So that's essentially just optimizing for 1 more card in hand. And the one prep is better to discard if you draw multiples. The only time this ratio is worse than like 2-2 is if you open 3 of them, and if you open 3, you probably can't play anyway, and it's very unlikely. And then for the extenders, these fantastic E-Telly, Foolish, which also gets you a tuner, or it gets you the Brave engine, and then 1 Despot for the HALQ combo. For going 2nd cards in the main deck, we played 3 Droplet, 2 Ghost Ogre. Droplets the best if you only can play very few going 2nd cards, and Ghost Ogre just trades well. It's got utility being a level 3, and you can get it with E-Telly. You can essentially always trade it 1-for-1 with an interruption, which isn't always great, but game 1 you have to think about also having to go first, and we're already playing 42, so we really didn't want to increase the ratio of non-engine cards at this point. Yep. So for the extra deck tokens, maybe I'll start with the HALQ combo. So yeah, HALQ Auroradon. This is like the strongest 2-card combo in the deck, so any way you can get into HALQ is great. And if your opponent can't interrupt it, you're going to build a board that they certainly can't break. Very often in this deck, you'll use this as a bait for their hand traps if you don't open the Brave stuff. You only make HALQ if you can play afterwards if it gets interrupted. And then you play the Cupid Pitch. This is for the HALQ combo, but thanks to Souls, you can also hard make this, which is fantastic because it becomes an additional plus. It adds you 1, lets you hard make a Baron very easily. Stardust Charge and Coral, these are pretty standard. Juju it's quite good utility card in the deck, but it's also necessary for the HALQ combo because you need a level 6 virtual world that you can go into with Cupid Pitch. Yazi, this isn't very standard. It's very good into boards because you can trade with very specific cards. The fact that it's non-targetable is a good part. It's not like we can summon something broken like a Moyi or something off of this, which would be better, but the fact that it's non-targeting removal or non-targetable removal is really strong, and it gives you a body that you can use afterwards. Then Shin. Zolkin Crystal Wing, I'm not a huge fan of this package. It's a lot of investment and it's only a monster negate, but it's also, very, very doable for the deck. And Baron de Fleur, very easily makeable with the level 7s in this deck now. And then for the XYZs, we have 1 Fortune Tune for Zeus Axis, M7 is pretty standard, and Beatrice that got substantially better in this deck thanks to the Brave engine, because what you'll end up doing is early on in your play, if you don't open Brave, you'll commit into a Beatrice and get the Brave engine that way, and you can set up a negate before you build the rest of your board, which is always very strong.
Nice.
And then for the side deck, just played a heavy hand trap lineup, Nip, Droll, Token Collector, only 2 Lancia, 2 Imperm, 1 Called By, and 1 Twin Twister. So essentially the strategy was, after game 1, if we know we're going second, we side in all the very strong hand traps against whatever matchup we're playing against. And that worked phenomenally, because with the 6 card in hand that you get for going second, you have a higher chance of opening enough virtual world cards to combo. So you can side out the Souls, you can side out all the utility cards, the Strudo, the Foolish, all this stuff that you don't really need. You side in the hand traps, you stop your opponent from playing, and then Virtual World is just a very explosive engine, and you can usually kill them on the bounce back. I really like Gamma before this tournament, but I think it just doesn't trade well with the Brave engine. So we opted out of Gamma and we put in Imperms and some other hand traps. But it hurts not being able to play Gamma in this deck. I wish I could.
It's fair. Did you ever find there was an issue with any like lack of spell and trap removal? So obviously only playing one Twin Twister. Was that? Did you find that an issue?
Yeah, the Twin Twister is actually kind of like a last-minute idea. We were playing no spell and trap removal because this deck plays really well into spells and traps. There's a lot of like toolbox extra deck cards that pop one. Coral Dragon, they all trade really well into back row. The Chuche, so the deck itself didn't have any problems. Like Eldritch is a really good matchup for the deck. If they put down a skill drain, if they put down there can only be one. So we never really needed it, but the idea with the Twin Twister was there's some decks like Flunderies and Crank Hits, which have cards which can only activate in the main phase, and they have very limited back row. So a quick play 2 of removal is very strong against them. You could hit the field spell and the trap for Flunderies. You could hit the 2 sets that they have after they have Cranks, the Equip, and Adventure with the Crank Hits. So this trades really well into certain decks, but it's not even really meant for back row matchups.
Fair.
Yep.
Do you want to show the HALQ combo?
Yeah, sure. I think the Brave deck, the base deck, put a lot of people on like the standard HALQ combo that we knew, but this deck kind of does it like the best, I think.
Okay.
So any 2 tuners with the right combination of cards, you can also set up a fleur before that. So you would want to summon the HALQ. Yeah, that's pretty standard. HALQ into Auroradon. You get the 3 tokens. The Despot comes back. And at this point, it kind of depends on your hand. You always go into Cupid Pitch. Even if you have no way to play already. Because this adds your strongest monster Lulu when it's synchroed away, or if you already have a Lulu, it will add a Kirin, which is one of your better extenders. And then depending on your hand, you can usually synchro into a 6. If you don't have a way to play Virtual Worlds yet, you'll go into Juju.
Nice.
And then add. If you do have that, you can probably go into Stardust Charge or the Coral Dragon just for a free +1. And then if you haven't got your Brave Engine yet, let's just stick with the Juju line.
Yep.
You would add the Lulu, summon the Lulu. You can send a Qinglong to add. You can add a Chucha as an interrupt during your opponent's turn. You can sync these 2 off for Stardust Charge, draw 1, which you can discard for add back with this. Add back him, or add him, discard whatever you drew. You can overlay these. Again, it's kind of like a toolbox deck depending on what your hand is. Here you can either make a Beatrice, add the Brave Engine, and then make a Shenshen with him. Or what you can also do is you can make a Crystal Wing if you already have the Brave Engine. Out of there's just a ton of ways of doing it. If you make the Coral Dragon instead of the Stardust Charge, you can make another Omni Negate this way by setting the Chucha. Then you make Shenshen. Shenshen is also really strong in this format right now. Not a lot of decks can play with a Macrocosmos on field. And then obviously, if you have a Souls, you got to make sure that's one of the technical things you got to do. You got to make sure to trigger it before you put any of your virtual world effects on field. Otherwise, you can't special summon it anymore. And if you have one of the 1 bodies, so the Soul or a 4 or a 7, which the Brave Engine gives you, you can always make a Fleur, and that's also extremely strong. It's kind of weird. This deck runs out of board space very quickly. So quite a common play if you get the Auroradon playthrough is to use Auroradon's effect, tribute your own Zolkin to pop your own Auroradon to make space so you can, you can end on like something like a board like this or something. This is like a very standard normal board that you can do with like 4 cards in hand and then still have like a droplet or an ogre in hand. But you'll have to end up sacking your own board to make space for it. It's quite nuts.
Wow, this seems crazy.
Yeah, I think people just gotta play it. I didn't think it was that good until I played it, but
yeah.
I just run through people with this deck.
Yeah, the beauty is that you can just take so many different routes to get you to a different piece that you don't have, and just from like one HALQ if it resolves. Yeah.
Yep.
I like it.
You can really punish your opponent if they don't have enough hand traps in their deck. And if they do again, you never go into the HALQ lineup if it's your only play unless you can't play like at all. And you have a lot of ways of getting there. Yeah, and obviously the souls. It's hard to explain if you haven't played this deck, but souls and brave is like they were like made for each other. It's the freest +2 you'll ever have, +3 bodies, and all the levels are perfect for virtual world. So it feels like the stars aligned to fix this deck and fix a lot of the problems that it had before these cards came out.
Nice. Is there anything you would change post YCS if you could? If you could go back in time.
Post YCS, I think the biggest regret I have is kind of like the extra deck stuff. Yazi never came up, and came up in this tournament. It came up in the previous tournament, and also Fortune Tune. Kind of lost me a game in top 16, but maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Could have played Break Sword, that would have had more utility. This was just a safer card that we put in going into the tournament because all it's meant to do is make Zeus. So maybe there's some stuff you can fix with the extra deck. But I think the main deck is pretty optimized. The only thing you have to make sure is you have to watch out for the format, how it develops, which non-engine cards are the best for breaking boards. Because those have nothing to do with the deck itself. They're just, there to stop your opponent from playing. And if droplet no longer makes sense, then you got to be on top of that. Yeah.
Nice. Great. Love the deck. You got any shout outs? I know you mentioned your team. Is there any additional ones you want to give out?
Again, team, thanks for having me. Yeah, shout out to you, Jake, and then Team Legacy Card Gaming. Very happy they picked me up on, put me on a line of credit in terms of not having topped anything yet, but I think I'm starting to pay them back, and we're looking to do good things when IRL tournaments come back. And my teammate Paul Robert Goes, who essentially built most of this deck while I was on holiday. Nice.
I like the deck. Definitely like it. Guys who are watching the channel, I hope you enjoy the deck profile. If you've got any comments, if you're interested in any of any questions for the deck list, just to list it down below in the comments. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button. And congrats again on your top 16 performance at the recent Remote Duel YCS.